Hi everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Risk with Dr. Naveen Agarwal, where each week we talk about a topic related to risk management of medical devices. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal, principal and founder at Achieve, where my personal mission is to help you achieve success in risk management. In this episode, I'm joined by Jayat Moon, who is a quality manager at Terumo Medical Corporation, and Arun Matthew, who is an associate director of risk management at AbbVie. We talk about many different topics related to real-world practice of risk management in the industry, some of the challenges and best practices. We had this conversation as part of a LinkedIn live audio event in front of a live audience. You're about to hear a recording of our conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So I want to get started by welcoming Jayat and Arun. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to our attendees today and tell us a little bit about your personal story, your career journey, maybe a little bit, some pivotal moments in your career that helped you grow in a big way. Let us know what you do now, and let's get going. So, Jayat, I'll start with you first.
Hey, thanks, Naveen. So my name is Jayat Moon, and I think a lot of people know me as the author of the book published by ASQ, titled Foundations of Quality Risk Management. Right now, I'm in the medical device industry, and before that, Mike started my career in the power industry and the electrical industry. And my pivotal moment, I guess, Naveen, would be, in fact, my very first week where I was assigned to do a risk and failure analysis on a boiler pump. And risk management hasn't left me since that day. So I think one unique perspective I bring is that I've had the chance and the privilege to see risk management practices in various different industries. And my attempt is always to synthesize best practices from there. So that's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. And guys, again, I want to emphasize Quality Risk Management by Jayat. It's a great resource. He has compiled a lot of good information with great insights. So check it out when you can. And I will also share that link with you in the notes for this event. Arun, welcome. Please share a little bit about your personal story.
Good morning, Naveen. Thanks for having me and looking ahead for a good discussion. For me, I started understanding risk when I saw it first when a technical check for the review in an audit, and I was interested in knowing how they created and identified all this risk. So then I looked into the ISO 14971. And understood the basics of risk management, and the applications all had a lot of information about how the risk management can be conducted, right? So that was like, I feel like there was a Bible for risk management at that time. and then after learning from that theory, I had an opportunity to work with different medical devices company through the service company that I was working in. So that helped me to understand that the same process can be applied in different ways. And that also helped me understand that, the risk management is not just one process. It is using the different tools and how to apply that same process in the way how or what you're designing or your post-market or in any process that you work in. Right?
Yes.
So, and, now with that knowledge, I got into the spine industry, wherein I was tasked with doing risk management for spinal products. And at the time, people were not able to understand risk management that well. And I felt like, based with the knowledge, I could create a poetry or show some pictorial ways to explain risk management, and that really helped me to help the team understand what we are looking for when we say failure mode, or like how the each fault can lead into an overall harm and process like that. So I thought with some of the understanding of risk, I started also teaching the other people about risk, and that really helped me gain more knowledge in it, right? So with that experience, I started implementing risk management for bigger organizations, and also like bringing a lot of people into the same process. So that really helped. Now,
Perfect.
I am in the drug industry, and now what I'm seeing here is that I'm learning about how to implement risk in clinical trials, drug development, competition products, and cybersecurity. But in general, the philosophy of risk management is the same. It's just the
Yes, yes.
application is different.
Yes. So I think you make a good point that risk cuts across the board, right? And different industries, different ways it is practiced, and different ways to communicate about risk. So what I want to start the conversation with you guys that you have seen risk in many different industries, many different application scenarios. So Jade, starting with you first, just maybe what is your view on the term risk itself? I know sometimes it causes a lot of confusion, and you have looked at it in a lot more detail. What does the term risk mean to you?
Yeah, thanks, Naveen. I think I'm going to take a viewpoint which is not very common, and in some cases, it's not popular as well. As far as medical devices and pharmaceuticals are concerned, the risk is always considered as something which is negative. But when you branch out into the ISO 9000 world and a little bit more than that, the risk is defined as the effect of uncertainty on your objectives. And frankly, I subscribe to that definition because even though I work a lot on the product safety risk side, if your objective is safety, the effect of uncertainty on safety will catch that. And that will be defined as your negative risk, right? And I say that not because I want to start talking about financial risk or things like that. However, every time you make a change to a product or something like that, as reliability engineers, as design engineers, by default, we don't think about process risk, or even if we do, we don't think about business risk that much, right? However, somewhere up the chain, somebody's making that decision with or without a risk form or anything of that sort, right? That business risk, and the tragedy is that a lot of times that business risk can trump your safety risk. So that's why I like to define risk in a way that top management can also subscribe to that definition. And I feel like that has worked for me. So I like to take a very macro approach for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you are looking at risk in a more holistic way, and you are saying safety is one aspect of it because, of course, safety is one of our objectives.
Correct.
And it's a cumulative set of objectives that we should look at. Great. So I think we hope to talk a little bit more about that. Arun, if you are able to join us again with your, check your mic once again. There was a lot of static before. But I would like to invite the same thoughts from you. What is your view on risk?
Yeah, so risk for me has always been about safety, right? And I think that's because I was in medical device industry, and also drug, also the same as the philosophy, right? And safety is the key here. But when I learn more and see the risk definitions through ISO 3100, I see risk as something that creates a hurdle to achieving our goal is what I see in our risk as. And I think I agree with Jed there. Like, it's not just one, the safety is only one aspect of risk. There are multiple.
Wonderful. So this is interesting, right? So I think let's pursue this line of thought a little bit. Certainly we talk about safety risk management in medical device industry a lot. However, risk is broader than that. And we have had many conversations here on this forum as well about risk-based decision-making or risk-based thinking. When we are making those decisions, we are looking at all kind of different risks. So, Jed, maybe I'll start with you again. How do you appropriately communicate different risks? Have you found some difficulties or some best practices that you can share in communicating different risks?
Yeah, and that's a profound question, Naveen. I think when you say different, there's a whole spectrum of things. What I do is I'll focus on something which is, I would say, a twin sibling of safety, which is reliability, right? And that is something which, from the post-market side, can be easy to get numbers from, at least from bird's eye view, and then those can be fed back into your design reliability stuff. However, the best practice there, and especially in the whole environment of ISO 14971, which, by the way, is a safety risk management standard, not a reliability risk management standard. In context of that, I think organizations have to decide how they are looking at reliability and how they are looking at safety, because your hazard analysis and because FMEA, it's a reliability risk tool, right? It is not built to be a safety risk tool. You can, of course, there's changes you can make to that. So best practice for me would be first to be clear in your head that safety risk and reliability risk are two things which feed maybe into the same place, but the path could be different. For example, since I've got a lot of foundation in post-market, I'll tell you, any malfunctions or defects, the numbers and the occurrences you get out of post-market data or clinical data or registries or what have you, regardless of whether that causes a harm, that can go into your reliability risk parameters.
Nice.
On the other hand, a lot of times when people are doing literature reviews and things like that, looking at registries, the clinical side of the post-market, you will not get that much malfunction data, but you'll get a lot of data on harms and stuff. That feeds into your safety risk management. So there's various ways to look at this. However, I think step one is to make sure that, it's not just one-dimensional way to manage risk for medical devices or pharma. Like there's various dimensions to it. And these are just two I'm talking about.
Oh, that is a fantastic way of putting this together, that we are getting a lot of information from post-market. And what I'm hearing you say is that if we focus so much only on the data related to injuries or harms, we may not feed back the malfunction data appropriately into our reliability improvement work processes. That was one message that I kind of heard between the lines there. It's both, and they are related. So we have to figure out a way to extract all the relevant information, feed it back. So Jay, you also shared that recently you have moved to a design quality assurance role, and with your experience in post-market, I think you are the best person to talk about that connectivity and linkage. Are there any kind of interesting best practices you can share with all of us that will help us coordinate all this work through our different functions?
I think one thing I might want to talk about is a lot of people follow the P1, P2 method in 14971, even though that's not an explicit requirement. A lot of companies are carrying out their hazard analysis, trying to semi-quantify or wherever possible, quantify these numbers. And what I'd like to guide people that the P1 number is going to be how you interpret that. Where, is it the probability of sequence of events leading to hazardous situation? Where does your defect lie, or where your malfunction lies, which leads to hazardous situation? The quantification of that number is crucial if you want to equilibrate these two kinds of risk. And then even in pre-validation stages, you can use that number, and you can get to that number based on your verification activities, which comprise of those malfunctions or those defects which results from testing of those particular design inputs, right? So I think that is one space where if companies pay more attention, instead of just qualitatively assigning something, there could be efficiencies gained.
Oh, very interesting. So what you're saying is that depending upon how we define the P1, first of all, it's not mandatory, but depending upon how we define it, we have an opportunity to connect the reliability side of the equation with the safety side.
Right.
Oh, this is great. Arun, I want to invite you also to share your thoughts about trying to link this, post-market design. What has been your experience in finding opportunities to provide that linkage?
Yeah, so most of in my career, I have been in the design space. The way I connected with Jay also was through this post-market design region actually. And it was very interesting to learn from Jay about how the data what I create, the design phase, is used in the post-market and how he determines to take any action or whether to ignore the complaint based on the risk what we identify, right? So I think it is very much connected. You are in design phase, you are proactively seeing what can go wrong. And in the post-market, you are monitoring the data to see if actually what you have designed and what you thought the design phase for risk is accurate, right? If there is any change, you have to react to it with some design changes and also or making improvements in the process to address the complaints or the feedback what you're getting. So it's very important to look into the post-market side. And I think the risk management is a key part that goes through all of that, like starting from design to the post-market, that is monitoring through this process to understand how we can react.
Yes.
And that is the important connecting part, rather than it's not the design itself, right? Because the design itself cannot go into the post-market, but the connecting feature is the risk management, where it's monitoring to see how the reliability data is coming through. What we are designed for is working in the field as you expected. If not, you're getting the data there right there.
Great. So, well, that seems to be also the essence of what 14971 is asking us to do. That's the essence of what the regulatory authorities are expecting us to do, right? They expect us to have this closed loop feedback. So, at this point of time, I would like to open the floor for discussion and invite folks in the audience to just participate. Raise your hand. I will invite you to the stage and have a conversation. And Taylor is requesting to speak. So Taylor, hopefully you can join us in just a little bit. And here is David. So let me select that as well. Yes, guys. So if you want to join, please let me know now. It takes a little while to bring you on stage here. And we will continue our conversation. Okay, so Ravi Teja, you have joined us. Please unmute your mic and share what you have in mind. We can hardly hear you, so could you please get closer to your mic? Okay, we'll give Ravi a couple of minutes to adjust his mic.
Are you able to hear me better now?
Yes, much better. Thank you. Go ahead, Ravi.
Okay. Yeah, so my question to the panel is around the P1 discussion that we had a few minutes back. So when we define how to measure P1 or the criteria to monitor P1, so in the feedback cycle, so in future when we have any event that occurs, so the way I am thinking is we have three sources, right, for sequence of events like use, process, and design. And then we have a severity or harm associated with that in our HPRT, like hazard analysis. So if an event occurs of a higher severity, and then we want to feed that back into our system, and we know that the fact, most likely it's a use scenario, for example, that a higher severity event occurs. So do we take that information and put it back into our process and design mitigations as well? Or do we just limit our actions to just use scenario?
Chet, you want to take that?
Hey, I wasn't able to fully hear that. I don't know, Arun, if you were, and if you want to take that, and I can piggyback off what you say.
So if I understand the question, basically the sequence of events is coming from three parameters as like the process, use, and design, right? And so how the value for P1 value is connected to the specific, when we change the use, whether only the P1 value can be changed based on that, or the overall probability. Is my understanding correct, Ravi?
Sorry, so maybe I should restate my problem statement. So what I'm trying to say is, so if I have a higher severity event occurring from, say, a use risk, should I go back and look at my design and process risks as well to mitigate or limit that use occurrence? So should I limit my corrective actions only to use, or should I even consider use and design as well because of the severity of an event?
Got it. So my thinking would be is that if the root cause of the problem, or the cause of the risk what you identified, if it is from the use, that would be the first thing that I would target, right? And again, if the use error or the use scenario is able to be resolved, then if that can eliminate the risk itself, that I don't need to check into other process and the design part is my thinking. Again, once we do the risk control measure, you can again think about whether this new risk control measure is adding any new design, or if it's adding any new process changes, and then there can be additional risk in that aspect. So that will be something you have to check once you implement the risk control.
Great. Arun, I'll just quickly add one point to what you said is, and Ravi, it's also very important for us to understand what the initial events are that drive that sequence of events. Okay? And the contributing factors that Arun is talking about could come from multiple different sources. So you have to do all of them as part of your root cause analysis. Ideally, you should find design-related solutions, design-based solutions that minimize the chances of a use error that may lead to that, whether the severity is high or low. So it's really building the full picture, starting from design, process, use. You can do up, bottom up, or you can do top down. You could do that. So, certainly a lot more complicated discussion we can do on this topic, Ravi. I hope it gives you a perspective that you have to look at the whole picture, right? Not just one or the other. With that, I'm going to invite David. I know you have been waiting patiently. David, please unmute your mic and share what you have in mind. David, can you hear me?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I had two mute buttons. This question possibly for Jay. Jay, you made a comment about, for example, if safety was one of the objectives, later on down the road, possibly at a different stage of the process cycle, changes may be introduced. And so there may be business risks or other risks that are potentially introduced because of those changes. Would you say that at this point, there's potential competition between safety risks and the business risk? And if so, is it also possible that there's a lack of communication up at the upper levels, or a lack of understanding potentially of either the risk itself related to safety or potential interactions of the risks? Thank you.
Yeah, David, that is such a good question. And you're absolutely right. These risks compete all the time. For example, if you gotta, like for a product which is out in the market, you gotta go ahead and do some change on that product, and there's a big question around what to do with existing product. In that case, you have a business risk because that product may not be going to the customer directly, but there's various treatments that can be applied to that risk. Like, what do you do with that product? And then safety creeps in, because if one of the mitigations to that business risk is that, okay, we use the product, then how do you reconcile the fact that the patient may be ending up using a product which is less safer than your newer product? So these compete all the time. And you're also right on the second aspect, that the understanding of the technical details of the safety risk decreases as you go up the chain. And I think really good leaders, really good top management personnel, they take time to fully understand what that technical safety risk means. Faster decisions where you don't understand that, or you want to be paying more attention to the financial aspects, less attention to the safety aspects, especially in the medical device and pharma industry, that is a recipe for failure. So at the end of the day, like net bottom line, safety should be your number one priority. However, the people who are actually tasked with making those bigger decisions around disposition of some of these things may not fully understand that, but they need to take time to understand that and put safety before the business risk. Like, that is my personal opinion.
Great. Thank you, Jade. I have 3 more guests here, so I'm going to continue. Jason, I think I had you come first, so please unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
All right, thank you very much. And Arun, it's good to hear your voice again. I worked with Arun a number of years ago. As an HR professional, I'm thinking of risk more in the human-centered thing. And I think oftentimes we have almost like a homo economicus problem, right? Where people don't always behave and follow procedures and policies when they're interacting with the product and our processes. So my question is, how do you guys, get into discover competing priorities, or, when people may be, pushed or have other reasons to not follow a process, or things that our quality professionals will write these great processes, but they're not always followed. How do you guys see under the covers, right, to see, what's really going on and discover that risk introduced by the people?
Interesting. Arun, you want to take that?
Hi, Jason. Nice to hear your voice too. And this is a very interesting question I've not much thought about, but I think this is one thing I was also saying in the earlier in the talk, is that it's all about the risk, what is defined to you, right? So in the case of a quality professional in medical devices, his main concern is a patient safety, right? If you are focusing on a clinical trial, then the patient safety and data integrity is something that you are keen on. And in the case of an HR, might be the interesting risk is that, are the employees following the process, and if not, what is the risk of that, right? That's where I would see like my overall risk is, and then try to see what are the risks that arises if the employee doesn't follow something, and then try to see the severity of that.
Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that in an organization, we have multiple factors and multiple considerations. That's why Jade's initial point about objectives becomes important, right? All of these objectives are important, not one or the other. And when HR is concerned, I think employee engagement, employee satisfaction, that's also very important. So I guess the point here, as risk professionals, we should be aware of all these multidimensional aspects of risk management and help our management make the most optimal decision in a given situation, right? It's a team effort. So let me now invite Vikas. We have so much discussion today, guys, and I love this, and we will continue because I want to make sure you get your questions answered or your comments. So Vikas, go ahead, unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
Yes, thanks for this opportunity. My question is related to those sequence of events or the hazards which are very much random in nature. For example, electromagnetic interference. So for this instance, what are the simplest steps to quantify the severity and occurrence probabilities, especially such kind of random events?
Okay, Jade, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I think 14971 identifies electromagnetic energy as a hazard. And you've got to understand your product to find out how that hazard will lead to sequences of events that will cause hazardous situations. For example, if you have a pacemaker and you're going through an X-ray machine in an airport, that's the hazard of electromagnetic energy interacting with your device, which is the pacemaker. So you got to be able to understand how that energy interfaces with the components of your device and what will it lead to. So your defects, malfunctions, failure modes will lie in the spectrum somewhere before hazards and going down to the hazardous situations. With that, you will have a list of hazardous situations. And that would be, okay, electromagnetic energy causes a short or, overcurrent on something or causes something to melt. And based on that, you will assign with input from your clinical and medical teams what the end harm could result to the patient, right? And then all of this will have to be assigned values. Does that make sense?
Yes, just one small follow-up question. So, in order to if I take the same example, pacemaker near to some electromagnetic environment, then in this case, how can I consider the sample size? I mean, should I have to consider the same manufacturer or the devices which are already installed in the globe? How can I consider the sample size?
Yeah,
To define the probabilities.
So you're asking, you need to do sampling for whatever testing reason, and you're saying, how do I decide on that sampling?
Yeah, that seems to be the question, Jed.
Okay, and so all sampling needs to be risk-based, or either risk-based or guided by the standard. Some standards, usability standards, for example, have set number of samples you need to take. You can take that sample, apply statistics to it, and come up with a expected failure value based on your reliability numbers. Other cases, people use all kinds of statistical methods. AQLs use verification testing to come to, and there's various statistical tools and confidence intervals and things of that nature. You can do, and Arun maybe can shed some more light on those.
Yeah. So basically, the higher the risk, the higher the number of samples that you will be using, right? So again, that will be defined through your process, wherein you say for low risk, you will be using the number of, the reliability and confidence number will be 95, 99, 90, 90 or 90, 80. And based on that, the number of samples will be determined in the verification testing. But in typically this electromagnetic testing, we have the IAC standards, which define the number of samples mostly are required.
That's a good point. So, Vikas, I think the tip here is look at the applicable standards for the medical device first, because they will tell you, in most likelihood, they'll tell you what to do, how many samples, and what kind of acceptance criteria you should have. So let's leave it at that for now. I know, Prashant, you have been waiting patiently, so I want to invite you to unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
Sure. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hey, so in this conversation so far, I think we haven't really touched upon the residual risk or the concept of residual risk and how far risk mitigation is necessary. Do the speakers today have any thoughts on best practices on identifying the acceptable amount of residual risk and what post-market studies can also contribute to that?
Wonderful question. So, Prashant, just to clarify, that residual risk idea will apply to individual risks and also the overall risk. So with that framework, Jay, do you want to say a few things about that?
Yeah, so from the MDR standpoint, the answer is as low as possible, right?
As far as possible, right? As far as possible.
As far
as possible. That's fair. But how far is what?
Okay.
So so that's where you're going. So firstly, no financial considerations allowed. So that's the European rule. Secondly, your acceptability criteria goes a long way, because that's what everything is based on. And now that we have got some experiences on how different notified bodies and what they're really expecting out of that clause and in your benefit risk analysis, I think, to me, the crucial step there is how you structure your risk matrix, how you define what your probability or occurrence scale is, and what you say when you do those boxes, like what is acceptable, what is unacceptable. Based on that, because that is critical. And a lot of times, people don't pay a lot of attention to that risk matrix, and there's like all these massive communications about, hey, how do we take it from unacceptable to acceptable? Let's take a step back and say, who defined those severity scales and those risk acceptability scales, like, is there any solid basis around those numbers? Do we need to revise those numbers itself before building the whole building of, your a particular individual risk being acceptable or unacceptable, right?
So
And
we have to do that first, right? That's what you're saying. Put that first before you even start.
Usually that is done in the RMP, right?
Mhm,
So
yes.
per procedure, that is supposed to be done first. However, like, it is like a standard sort of, right? So nobody's double checking if that makes sense for various products, and certain companies sort of try to do it for every product differently, and that's a whole different issue as well. But again, I'll just add a couple of more lines to this because this is a very big topic. Benefit risk analysis is whether you have an opportunity to justify whatever you do, right? That's the place where as low as possible and all that sort of stuff, and the comparison with the harmonized standard, all of that comes in to justify how low did you go? Why did you go? Why didn't you go further? What's the impact on the benefit risk ratio? So your benefit risk document gives you a chance to come clean as well. So that's where I'll stop.
So Prashant, I'll add two more very specific points for you on that. And I know Ed is on the panel waiting very patiently. Ed will have a lot more to say about this. Two specific points for you. One is look up standards, product specific standards. They'll give you a lot of information about what you can do to define your acceptability criteria. Second thing is FDA has provided several benefit risk guidances. Look those up because FDA actually gives you a template, a worksheet template that will help you build a case for benefit risk. Ed, I know you have been waiting very patiently, so I want to invite you, maybe share a few thoughts on this topic or any other thing that we have talked about.
Can you hear me, Naveen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. The first one I want to address is someone brought up the thing about not following procedures. That is very dangerous in the U.S. If you have a U.S. product and you don't follow your own procedures, you are at risk of a warning letter. And the FDA will write a warning letter quicker on not following your own procedures than into violating the regulations. Because they think that if you don't follow your own procedures, they cannot trust you for any of the information you have. So do not violate your own procedures. If you have a problem, you revise the procedure. You don't violate it. So that's the first thing I want to say.
Great,
Okay?
yes.
The second one is Jayet mentioned ISO 31000, and that business risk standard is important for a business to follow, but it is a separate and distinct process from safety risk. And somewhere up the chain, after the two standards have identified issues, the management makes a decision about which way to go. But you never want to trump safety with cost, and that's kind of where the Europeans brought up the issue of ALARP, which, interestingly enough, as low as reasonably practicable, was put in the standard at the insistence of the Europeans. And then they turn around and take it back out. But really, and Jayet pointed this out too, where you make decisions on cost is really in the benefit area. Because if you have to increase the cost of the product to the point that it's not available, that benefit's not available, then you have a case for doing something different than the cost issue. But this is a great discussion today, and we've had a lot of participation in here.
Yeah, Ed, so what I'm hearing you say is that when it comes to overall benefit risk, you could consider practicability and economic feasibility cost as a discussion point to understand the balance between benefit and risk. Right? That's what you're saying. Don't ignore it. It's a business decision.
Well, the point is, if you have to increase the cost to the point that you can't manufacture the product,
correct,
then the benefit's not available to the patient.
Correct.
So that's the trade-off that, and pharmaceuticals addresses the same thing, and in ICH-Q9 is the benefit to risk comparison there. As non-availability of product is not acceptable if there is a major benefit to that product.
Got it. So again, guys, excellent discussion today. Thank you so much for participating. Jayat and Arun, I want to thank you and give you an opportunity to share some closing comments. Arun, you want to go first?
Sure. No, I think, thank you. I think this is a great event wherein people can come and learn and also discuss risk, right? Because in some instance, in your organization, you are the only person who knows the risk, and it's very hard to connect with somebody who's in the industry, who knows more and also understand some of their ways of thinking. So I think this is great. Thank you for having me, and I think it could be a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. Jayat, please share your thoughts.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Naveen. I think this is a great forum, and the audience is also, on a expert level, right? So we get very good questions, and it's a very enlightening discussion, and especially for the time we are here and the knowledge we're getting out of it, a lot of value for your money, right? So this is a great forum. Thanks, and thank you for everybody else for listening to me.
Thanks, guys. And I will make 2 key points here. First one is our main goal here is to connect people. So guys, if you didn't know, you can connect with anybody in the audience directly, even if they are not your first degree contact. Second point I want to make is that we are not going to solve problems in a deeper way, right? We are trying to create discussion, conversation, and connectivity with people that you can follow up for more detailed conversations. And we'll have, some other ways to share more detailed information and really actionable insights with you. But this forum is more about having a general level conversation and creating relationships. Having said that, we are going to meet every week, 11 a.m. Eastern on Fridays. If you cannot join, I will prepare recordings. And in fact, I've been publishing them on my newsletter. You can find the link to my newsletter in the featured section of my profile on LinkedIn, if you're already not on that. So you will have access to these recordings with some highlights and key points. And I appreciate your participation. Stay engaged, come and join these events as much as possible. And if not, watch those recordings and share your thoughts and comments. With that, guys, I want to thank you for attending again. Let's connect once again next week and build these relationships with each other in the industry so that we can collectively enhance our capability in risk management. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.